July 23, 1996. A family of four, a father, mother, and two young boys set off from Dresden, Germany, on a dream road trip across America, their final destination, Yosemite. But en route, they entered one of the hottest places on Earth, Death Valley National Park. They were never seen alive again. Their minivan was found abandoned, half buried in sand. No signs of struggle, no footprints, no bodies, just silence under a blazing sun. Then, 13 years later, two hikers made a discovery that rewrote everything. In the summer of 1996, Egbert Rimkus, a 34-year-old architect, planned the ultimate family getaway. With him were his 11-year-old son, Georg, his girlfriend Cornelia, Meyer, 27, and her 4-year-old son, Max. They'd weathered personal storms, divorce, financial strain, and longed for connection. Their car? A 1996 Plymouth Voyager, comfortable for the desert heat, but not built for Death Valley's rugged terrain. They spent July 8th to 22nd exploring San Clemente, Las Vegas, and the edge of the valley, before heading down a path that would seal their fate. At Furnace Creek Visitor Center, Cornelia signed the logbook saying, "Going through the pass," in German and presumably referencing the dangerous Mengel Pass. But is the family trained? Minivan capable of such terrain? Not even close. They were stepping into a tripometer of elements they didn't understand. By late July, their minivan had suffered at least 3 flat tires. One or more were beyond help. Rims were ruined. They pressed on in the punishing 110 degrees Fahrenheit temperatures. Their decision: make it toward the China Lake Naval Base, only 8 to 9 miles south, or turn back to the geologist's cabin near Anvil Springs Canyon, a shorter but riskier route. No calls, no broadcasts. Their last message was in that tiny cabin's logbook. By October 1996, over 200 rescuers combed Death Valley helicopters, search dogs, horses, and teams on foot. They found only a beer bottle and seat-marked soil. After 5 grueling days, the search was suspended. Where did they go? Popular explanations include shortage of water, fatal heat stroke, mechanical breakdown causing irrational decision-making, a deliberate choice to disappear, ambush by desert cults or criminals. No evidence existed to confirm any. Not until 2009. Fast forward to November 2009, volunteers, Tom Mahood and Les Walker, retraced possible family roots. They found fragments, a German planner, a wine bottle, a Cornelia identifying ID, and finally, skeletal remains of Egbert and Cornelia. DNA testing confirmed the identities, but the fate of Georg and Max remains unknown. Adults confirmed, but no trace of the boys. No shelter, footprints, or clues about their final hours. Did they die from dehydration or wander off in panic? Or is something else at play? A dream turned desert nightmare. A search that stopped far too soon. And 2 boys who disappeared without a trace. But the story isn't just tragedy, it's a puzzle with pieces appearing decades later. And it's only just begun. The year was 1996. A German family disappeared in one of the most unforgiving deserts in North America. A stalled minivan, a signed guest book, and tire tracks vanishing into the dust. That was all they left behind. But what really happened after they entered the belly of Death Valley? In this chapter, we peel back the layers of their final known hours. The family departed Las Vegas in good spirits. They had planned a scenic drive toward Yosemite National Park, intending to pass through Death Valley to make the most of their American road trip. With their rented 1996 Plymouth Voyager packed with supplies, they set out for what seemed like just another sunny adventure. They first stopped at Furnace Creek Visitor Center, where Cornelia filled out the guest log. Her message was brief, simple, yet haunting in hindsight. She wrote, in German, that they were going through the pass, likely referencing Mengel Pass, a treacherous off-road trail through the Panamint Range. Staff at the visitor center didn't question it. Many tourists underestimated Death Valley's brutality. The name sounded ominous, but it was summer and the tourist count was high, but Egbert and Cornelia had made a crucial mistake. They were completely unprepared for off-roading. Valley in July is not just hot. It's deadly. Temperatures routinely rise above 120 degrees Fahrenheit, 49 degrees Celsius. And the landscape is deceptive. Vast stretches of emptiness where mirages shimmer and time distorts. The family headed down Warm Springs Canyon Road, based on tire tracks found. Later, they pushed further toward Anvil Canyon, a dry, boulder-strewn route that can easily trap a city vehicle. Their van was not 4WD, not high clearance. Not suited for this path, yet they drove on. This decision was fatal. Somewhere along the road, the van's tires gave way. It's believed that at least one, possibly two, went flat. The van was later found stuck deep in soft sand, but there was something eerie about the location. In October 1996, a Navy helicopter conducting unrelated training spotted the van from the air, partially hidden in brush and sand. When ground teams arrived, they found the vehicle completely intact, windows closed, no signs of violence, but empty. Inside, they discovered a German road atlas, open to Death Valley, several empty water bottles, diapers and snacks, half-used, a sleeping bag and car seats, a well-worn footprint outside the passenger side, most chillingly. A receipt dated July 22nd, the day before they vanished. There was no trace of the family. No signs of struggle, no blood, no weapons. Not even footprints leading away. Just silence. It was as if they had stepped out and dissolved into the desert. In the early days of the investigation, law enforcement and search and rescue officials could only speculate. It's possible that once the van became disabled, Egbert attempted to walk for help. The closest outpost, the China Lake Naval Weapons Center, was 20 miles away through brutal terrain. If they misjudged direction, they could have wandered deeper into the Panamint Mountains. The van's tires had been driven until they cracked and disintegrated. It was clear they weren't carrying enough water or supplies for a multi-day hike. The terrain likely broke them down both mentally and physically. Some whispered about desert cults, drug smugglers, or even human trafficking. After all, how could a family of four simply disappear without leaving any remains? But no physical evidence supported foul play, not a drop of blood, not a forced door, not even a sign of panic. Roughly 8 miles from where the van was abandoned, tucked deep into Anvil Canyon, stands a lone outpost known as the Geologist's Cabin, a historic stone shelter sometimes used by hikers and off-roaders for shade and rest. When investigators reached the site, they found a guestbook. On one of the pages Egbert had signed his name along with the date, July 23, 1996. It was the last verified sign of life from the family. This raised chilling questions. Had they walked all the way to the cabin? Did they rest inside? Why didn't they stay longer or wait for help? Theories now focused on the possibility that, after spending a night at the cabin, they decided to walk south, deeper into nowhere, in hopes of finding a road or a rescue. But why leave shelter when staying could have saved them? This decision, more than any other, sealed their fate. To understand the tragedy, we must understand the people. Egbert Rimkus was meticulous, structured, and engineer by profession. His family and ex-wife later said he was cautious, not prone to recklessness. Cornelia Meyer, younger and spontaneous, was deeply trusting of Egbert's planning. She wasn't familiar with the harshness of the American Southwest. Their sons, Georg and Max, were just kids, likely excited by the trip, unaware of any real danger. They were described as playful, curious, full of energy. Together, they were just like any family looking to make memories. That innocence, their belief in the safety of their surroundings, made their disappearance all the more tragic, despite involving local sheriffs, German consulates, military-grade search crews, and dog teams. The operation came up empty, hundreds of hours, dozens of square miles, nothing. In late 1996, officials suspended the search. The desert had claimed 4 more souls. Or so they thought. They vanished, not in a storm, not in violence, but into silence. A family of 4 swallowed by the earth, but more disturbing than their disappearance is what came next. Because 13 years later, strangers would return to the same path and discover something terrifying. For 13 years, the desert remained quiet. The van sat like a monument to absence, weather-beaten, slowly decaying in the sun. No new leads, no new theories. The trail had long gone cold. But in 2009, 2 men entered the same desolate canyon and stumbled upon something no one was meant to find. The summer of 2009 brought 2 amateur adventurers, Tom Mahood and Les Walker, to the remote Badlands near Anvil Canyon. Both were former search and rescue volunteers. Both were obsessed with unsolved mysteries. And both had read extensively about the missing German family. Tom had been fixated for years. He believed the original search had overlooked crucial terrain due to inaccurate assumptions about how far the family could walk. In August 2009, they launched a self-funded mission. Not for fame or reward, but to find the truth. They packed GPS trackers, hydration systems, and survival gear. They weren't tourists. They were hunting ghosts. By now, the area around the van had changed. Tracks were gone. Erosion had softened the tire impressions. Scattered debris had either blown away or been buried. Mahood and Walker followed a hunch. Based on satellite maps and old notes from the '96 search, they veered southeast of the abandoned van into rougher terrain. Hikers rarely went there. Even rangers avoided it. After a full day's hike under 115 degrees Fahrenheit, 46 degrees Celsius, heat, they reached a narrow canyon with dry washouts and volcanic rock. The place felt off, unusually silent, no insects, no animal tracks. And then something glinted. Half buried beneath desert sand was a human femur. Nearby, part of a child's shoe. Mahood and Walker froze. They were no longer just explorers. They were standing in the aftermath of a tragedy, scattered over a wide radius. They uncovered a child's sneaker, sun-bleached but intact, a rusted keychain with a small German flag, a partially mummified adult leg, with fragments of denim, eyeglass frames, a baby's bottle, cracked and dry. There were no full skeletons, just fragments. The desert had preserved some remains, but scavengers and erosion had scattered others. They marked GPS coordinates and retreated. Authorities were called, and soon forensic teams swarmed the area using dental records and genetic testing. The remains were confirmed to be Cornelia Meyer, found closest to the point of discovery. Max Meyer, partial remains were matched to the youngest son. Georg Weber. A few fragments were enough to confirm, oddly. Egbert Rimkus's remains were never recovered, not even a trace. This sparked immediate speculation. Had he walked further, perished in another canyon? Or was something more sinister involved? Theories swirled online. Some believed Egbert may have survived longer, even attempted to return for help. Others proposed he died elsewhere and was missed, but one thing was clear. The family had walked nearly 12 miles from the van in search of rescue, into some of the most unforgiving terrain in the western U.S. reconstructing their path. Investigators believed, after abandoning the van, the family followed a dry wash southeast. They likely carried their youngest child, Max, and minimal supplies. At some point, dehydration and heat stroke set in. Cornelia and the boys may have collapsed together. Egbert might have attempted to continue or circled back and never made it, but why walk that direction? Experts point to mirage psychology. In extreme heat, the brain misinterprets distance and direction. A nearby mountain can seem reachable. A canyon can feel like a shortcut. They didn't walk toward a town. They walked deeper into nowhere, despite extensive searches in the discovery zone. No journal, no note, and no camera were ever recovered. It's believed Cornelia brought a camera on the trip, as most tourists did. Egbert was known to write in a travel notebook. Both were missing. Some believe scavengers may have dragged their backpacks away. Others think sandstorms may have buried critical evidence forever, but the absence of a farewell message added to the sadness. They had time. They knew they were dying. But if a goodbye was written, the desert kept it secret. What haunts most who study this case isn't just the death. It's the gradual unraveling of hope. Picture it. You've walked 6 miles. With 2 young children. It's 120 degrees Fahrenheit and rising. Water's gone. Every footstep feels heavier than the last. You're trying to stay calm. Trying to believe there's a road? A ranger station. A miracle, but the desert offers nothing. There is no villain, no foul play. Only miscalculation. And the monstrous indifference of nature. In 2010, authorities officially closed the case. The cause of death was listed as hyperthermia, extreme heat exposure, dehydration, induced disorientation. The Rimkus-Meyer case was one of the most tragic and preventable disappearances in Death Valley history, but it still left unanswered questions. Why attempt such a dangerous route? Why weren't warning signs posted at Warm Springs Road? Why didn't anyone report them missing sooner? To this day, critics argue that Death Valley National Park signage was inadequate in the 90s, especially for foreign visitors. Their bones were finally found, but closure never came. One father still missing. One question still lingers. Did Egbert leave them behind to find help? Or did he meet something else out there? DNA confirms 3 victims, one still missing. A tragic reconstruction of the family's final hours. Official closure. But eternal questions. 3 sets of remains were found in that scorched desert canyon, but one man, Egbert Rimkus, was never recovered. No bones. No clothes, not even a watch or a belt buckle. So what happened to him? Some say he died just out of reach. Others believe something else entirely. The fact that Egbert's remains were never found is the single biggest mystery left in this case. Authorities assumed he perished farther from the group. But seasoned hikers like Tom Mahood insist they combed every logical route multiple times. Nothing if Cornelia, Georg, and Max collapsed near each other. Egbert must have either continued deeper into the canyon before collapsing or separated, intentionally to find help, knowing he wouldn't survive much longer. But if so, why was not a single trace ever recovered? Let's unpack some of the most popular and chilling theories surrounding Egbert Rimkus's disappearance. The simplest theory is that Egbert walked on maybe another 3 to 5 miles, then died in a crevice beneath a rock shelf or under a collapsed sandbank. It's possible scavengers spread his remains or sand-buried them entirely. But remember, Mahood and Walker searched a 12-square-mile radius with GPS mapping and infrared scanning in later visits. Still, nothing. So, why only him? Here's where it turns darker. Egbert was reportedly stressed, irritable, and even angry during the trip. His journal hinted at tension. Some believe there may have been an argument. He might have left them behind deliberately. He could have faked his own death. Sounds wild, right? But one missing person with no trace always invites darker thoughts. Was he planning to disappear before the trip? Was the family targeted, or did someone encounter him after the separation? No blood was found at the site. No sign of violence. But when only 3 of 4 people are found, people start to ask the uncomfortable questions. Death Valley isn't just known for heat and beauty. It's a paranormal magnet. Locals speak of strange lights near Furnace Creek, radio interference in the dunes, and echoes that don't bounce back the same. Some theorists believe the family walked into an electromagnetic anomaly, that hallucinations led them off course, or worse, into a geological event no science can yet explain. The idea of Egbert stepping through a crevasse or vanishing into a cave system isn't impossible. There are undocumented lava tubes and sinkholes in the park, many of them unstable and uncharted. Could one man have been taken by the earth itself? Another mystery, the briefcase found inside the family's rented van. It contained travel documents, passports, a $200 traveler's check, and a note written in German, addressed to a woman back home. The note was never fully translated publicly. Authorities kept its contents confidential, but some who viewed the case file claimed it hinted at regret or a need for closure. If Egbert wrote it, was it a suicide letter, a goodbye? We don't know. But that note, sitting untouched in a locked van for 13 years, feels like the final unspoken word of a man whose body was never found. Let's not forget, the discovery of the remains was an accident. Tom Mahood wasn't part of a police agency or official search. He was a private citizen obsessed with the mystery. Had he not wandered down that exact canyon, no one may have ever known what happened, which raises the question, how many other families have vanished in the desert, never to be discovered? Death Valley is massive. Parts of it are practically untouched. With a wrong turn and one bad decision, you disappear forever. That's what makes Egbert's case so haunting. He could still be out there. Or maybe he's somewhere else entirely. In the years following the discovery, forums exploded with theories. A Reddit thread reached over 10,000 comments, debating the cause of death. German newspapers questioned the U.S. Park Service's handling of the case. Paranormal podcasts called it the German Dyatlov Pass. The case entered internet folklore, much like the Yuba County 5, the Dyatlov Pass incident, the Bennington Triangle disappearances. What ties them all together? A lack of closure, one missing person, and questions science can't answer. Park rangers today sometimes tell visitors the story quietly, without names. They say, there's a van out near Anvil Canyon. Belonged to a family that never came back. Sometimes hikers report hearing voices at dusk or seeing glints of white. In distant ravines, of course, it's probably the wind, or the bones of burros long dead. But the desert has its own memory, and it rarely gives up all its secrets. Egbert Rimkus walked into the heat and dust with his family. His wife and children were found, but he evaporated. No man leaves no trace, unless something or someone ensures it. When the Rimkus family vanished in 1996, it was a tragedy. But when their remains were found 13 years later, something else became clear. They weren't alone. Death Valley keeps more secrets than just theirs, and it's been whispering them for over a century. Death Valley isn't just hot, it's deadly. Temperatures soar to 134 degrees Fahrenheit, 56.7 degrees Celsius. Officially the hottest ever recorded on Earth, but it's not just the heat that kills. It's the distance, the mirage of safety, and the finality of a wrong step. Since the 1950s, more than 700 people have gone missing or died in the greater Mojave and Death Valley area, many of them never found. Some were tourists. Some were seasoned hikers. Some were never meant to be there. The desert doesn't discriminate. It just takes, let's start 15 years before the Rimkus case. A young couple from Flagstaff, Arizona, the Morgans, set off on a 2-day trip into the southern dunes with their 9-year-old daughter. They were experienced off-roaders, had 2 Jeeps, and plenty of supplies. They radioed into a ranger station near Badwater Basin. We're heading toward an old mining trail. Back in 48 hours. They were never heard from again. Search crews found 1 Jeep abandoned, tires slashed by sharp volcanic rock, doors wide open but no footprints. Their second vehicle gone. 2 years later, a single boot belonging to Mr. Morgan was found 18 miles north of Dante's View. That's all. 3 college students from UCLA entered Echo Canyon in 1989, attempting a 4-day backpacking loop. They were last seen near an old mining ruin, joking with another group of hikers. But on day 3, when they failed to meet their shuttle, rangers began a search. After 2 weeks, they found a journal half buried in sand. It read, "He's not who he said he was. We need to go the other way." To this day, their bodies were never found. All these disappearances share eerily similar traits. Experienced hikers or families with proper supplies, no distress signal equipment, often left intact. Missing individuals vanish without animal interference. Tom Mahood, the man who found the Rimkus remains, once said, "You'd expect vultures, bones, bits of clothing. But it's like the earth just swallowed them." And many happen near anomalous landmarks. Anvil Canyon Echo. Past the Panamint Dunes, the racetrack playa, it's as if these locations pull people in, then refuse to let them go. In 2010, a declassified FBI report revealed an odd finding: a desert cult operating in the Mojave from the 70s through the 90s. calling themselves the Assembly of Dust. They believed Death Valley was the gate of renewal. The group was tied to at least 5 disappearances. Though nothing was proven, their compound was raided in 1994, just 2 years before the Rimkus family went missing. Inside, investigators found handmade maps of the desert ritual markings, bones of unidentified origin audio tapes containing chants and messages about becoming one with the sand. Could Egbert Rimkus and his family have crossed paths with remnants of this group? Or worse, was he a part of it? Some conspiracy theorists believe the note in his briefcase was a confession, not of failure, but of initiation. Many experienced hikers who ventured into these areas report electronic failures. GPS devices shut down inexplicably, cameras wipe themselves clean, compass needles spin erratically near certain rock formations. In 2017, drone operator and YouTuber Mark Salinas attempted to map a forgotten trail near Warm Springs Canyon. His drone crashed without warning, lost all footage, and emitted a loud static hum before cutting off. Salinas later posted, "It wasn't just mechanical. It was like something didn't want to be recorded. Talk to old rangers and you'll hear the same stories again and again. Lights floating just above the salt flats, voices at midnight near abandoned cabins, footprints that lead nowhere. Some of these are explained away, heat mirages, coyotes, sleep deprivation, but others, not so easy. One ranger claimed to have followed a set of bare human footprints for nearly a mile. They were fresh, they ended at a dry riverbed. No return prints, no signs of struggle. Just gone. Maybe the scariest truth is this: Death Valley doesn't need to be haunted. It doesn't need ghosts or portals or shadow people. It's so big, so brutal, so ancient, it can erase you with nothing but silence and sun. In many ways, the mystery of the Rimkus family isn't just about them. It's about how fragile we are, even with cars, GPS, radios, and bottled water. One wrong turn, and the desert becomes your entire world, with no exit. The Morgans, gone. The hikers of Echo Canyon, gone. Dozens of stories, different names, same ending. They walked in, and the valley closed behind them. Egbert Rimkus is just one thread in a much larger web, woven by heat, wind, and silence. You think this is a story of one family, but this place has more. And it's not done yet. We've seen the evidence, the bodies, the disappearances, the myths. Now it's time to ask, what really happened to the Rimkus family, and why do so many who enter Death Valley never come back? The most accepted theory about Egbert Rimkus, his son Georg, and his girlfriend Cornelia is heartbreakingly simple. They got lost. Here's the basic outline pieced together by Park investigators and forensic teams. Egbert attempted a shortcut down Anvil Canyon. Despite warnings in the visitor log. Their Plymouth van, not built for off-road terrain, overheated and was abandoned. They tried to hike out, possibly aiming for a road or ranger station along the way. They succumbed to heat stroke, dehydration, and disorientation. Their remains were found nearly 13 miles from the vehicle, with no water, limited supplies, and no shade. To many, this seems like a tragic but avoidable mistake. But if that's true, why so many loose ends? Let's revisit the oddities. The video camera was found at their hotel, left behind. Even though they were supposedly filming their trip, Egbert's diary ended abruptly mid-sentence, no sign of a final log, goodbye, or panic. Their map had markings pointing toward areas unrelated to tourist routes. One body, Cornelia's, was never found, only a shoe and a jawbone fragment. Egbert's briefcase note said, "We are going through the pass." Everything is going wrong. Why write that in a briefcase? Why not leave it on the car or a trail marker? It almost felt encoded. Some investigators, including independent searcher Tom Mahood, speculate that Egbert wasn't just a tourist. Before his disappearance, Rimkus was undergoing a divorce and financial trouble, facing a custody dispute with his ex-wife. Was the Death Valley trip a planned escape? The idea, Egbert wanted to vanish and use the terrain as cover, but that doesn't explain why his young son and girlfriend were with him, or why they died too, unless He planned to disappear alone. Maybe they followed him. Maybe it went horribly wrong. Remember the cult we mentioned earlier, the Assembly of Dust? They were known to operate in abandoned mining towns, perform desert rituals during solstices, target the chosen lost. People in transition. Emotionally vulnerable Egbert fit the profile. Recent divorce, custody, battle, financial stress. Looking for a rebirth. Did he stumble upon a group still active in the region? Were the Rimkus family lured into something more sinister than a wrong turn? Some believe the handwritten map markings resemble coordinates tied to ritual sites used by the Assembly. Is it far-fetched? Yes, but no more far-fetched than 700 disappearances with no logical explanation. Multiple amateur researchers and a few fringe scientists claim that certain locations in Death Valley disrupt electromagnetic fields, known locally as the dead zones. These are places where radios go silent, compasses spin, drones crash, even time perception becomes unreliable. One such area, Anvil Canyon, exactly where the Rimkus family vanished. Could the family have experienced cognitive disorientation? Did they wander in circles without realizing it? One local legend refers to this phenomenon as the death spiral. Hikers caught in loops, unable to find their way out, even when the road is nearby. This could explain their walking route, the incomplete diary, the strange location of the remains, and, if true, this valley doesn't need cults or killers. It just needs physics we don't understand. In 2022, a study conducted by geologist Lena Roberts at UC Riverside used ground-penetrating radar across parts of Death Valley, revealing layered voids in the soil, spaces large enough to conceal a car, or more chillingly, a body. She suggests these may be natural formations, or remnants of collapsed mining shafts never mapped. If Egbert or his group fell into one, their bodies might never have been found. But what if dozens of others fell in too? Could the valley be hiding an underground graveyard not built intentionally, but sculpted by time? Here's a hard truth about the Rimkus case and all desert disappearances. The desert doesn't remember. It doesn't care. It doesn't cry out or record what happens. Evidence decays in weeks. Footprints vanish in minutes. Bones bleach and scatter within days. The silence is total, unless a searcher stumbles on something by luck. Like Tom Mahood did, the story ends without answers. This is why, to this day, some families of the missing still drive out, still walk the salt trails, hoping to see a flash of metal, a shoe, a bone. So what do we believe? The theory of an accident? A cover-up? Or something older than both? We know the names. We've seen the photos, but the valley doesn't explain. Maybe Egbert was lost. Maybe he was hunted, or maybe he found something that doesn't want to be found. It begins with a van, forgotten in the heat, a father, a son, a woman who loved them, and it ends with questions echoing across a valley that buries its dead in silence. The official search for Egbert Rimkus, Cornelia Meyer, and Georg Weber ended in the early 2000s. The U.S. Park Service filed the case as concluded due to natural causes. But for those who truly followed it, the truth never felt complete. Let's look at what we actually have. The van, sun-scorched, and miles from any help, footprints, ending abruptly, some looping in odd patterns, bone fragments, some verified, some never conclusively identified. Cornelia, her full remains never found, and then a 13-year silence before hikers stumbled across pieces in the middle of nowhere. It's like the desert returned just enough to keep the story alive, but never enough to let it close. Tom Mahood, the amateur tracker who found the remains, wrote years later, "You don't find answers in Death Valley. You find fragments. And if you're lucky, the fragments don't change you. But they do." Every person who has walked the path of Egbert and Cornelia speaks of the same sensation. Time feels warped, distances stretch unnaturally, and always the silence. 1 hiker said, "It was like walking inside someone's memory that was slowly erasing itself." Another claimed, "I heard voices, not whispering, just singing, in a language I didn't know." Are these hallucinations, desert madness, or something ancient that the valley has always guarded? Among the Shoshoan, one of the native tribes of the region, There's a legend of a cursed place called Timpi Kauai, or the Valley That Devours. In their stories, a spirit wind swallows those who carry heavy hearts. The more lost you feel inside, the faster it consumes you. They say some never die. They simply walk until they're forgotten by time itself. Some researchers now believe. The story of Egbert Rimkus was eerily similar to another disappearance from 1939. A German tourist named Helga Schmidt vanished during a solo hike. Her body was never found, only her wristwatch, discovered decades later 10 miles from her path. Buried in a crevice, coincidence? Or is Death Valley a story that keeps retelling itself? Egbert's ex-wife never remarried. She gave annual interviews on German television, maintaining hope for 15 years until one final appearance where she simply said, "I hope Georg didn't suffer." That's all I can ask now. Cornelia's family held a memorial service. With no body. Tom Mahad, the man who found Egbert and Georg, refused payment, refused interviews for years. In his blog, he ended the story with, "Some stories don't want to be told. They only allow you to whisper parts of them before the rest is swallowed by dust." So why are we still talking about this? Why make a documentary? Why trace the same steps? Because vanishing isn't the same as forgetting. When people disappear, they leave behind echoes, ripples, clues for others who might walk the same road. This story of a family lost in one of Earth's deadliest places is more than a cautionary tale. It's a human story about fear, about desperation, about the lengths a father would go to for freedom, for peace, or for escaping, maybe, just maybe. About the places in this world where our logic doesn't apply. Years after the last discovery, hikers in Anvil Canyon reported finding a piece of cloth wedged into a rock, sun-bleached but unmistakably. Pattern. It matched Cornelia's last known outfit. Near it, someone had scratched the word WAIT into the stone. No one knows who wrote it. No one ever came forward, but it felt like a whisper through time. In Death Valley, the sun burns away memory. The wind erases footprints. The silence consumes names, but still, some echoes remain, a shoe in the sand, a scratched word on stone. A van, frozen in time. And a story, passed from searcher to searcher, always incomplete, always waiting. Final words, Egbert Rimkus. Georg Weber, Cornelia Meyer. Lost but not forgotten.